believe us, things will fall in place. This is a tested, proven, a bedrock of wealth. That is real estate. This is where you can literally multiply your your asset, your income. It's gonna be, you can make it passive, you can make it active. That is what is so special about real estate. You can, if you decide you want to go active, go ahead. You are free to do that. Passive, you are good to go. This is a bedrock of wealth, like I said. So, Ahmed, today, our audience would like to know what do we have for them. And I'm very excited because today, this is literally a way, like we're going to tell you from the beginning to the end, how you can buy your first investment property. I believe this is huge, Ahmed. What do you think?
Yeah, honestly, we've been doing it piece by piece. Like you
Yeah.
want to hit an elephant, you take a bite at a time, all along. But tonight we are actually bringing everything together, like explaining it from ground zero to the end. And honestly, if you have not been, listening or watching us on all our podcast platform, YouTube, Facebook group, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, tonight you don't want to miss it, just because we are putting everything together. Just like you have your window in the house, you have your flooring, you have your ceiling, you have your light features. We are bringing everything that we've been discussing into one podcast for you. So we are literally summarizing everything. Tonight is going to be how you can buy your first investment property. The same knowledge is useful for if you want to buy your primary residence. So you just don't want to miss tonight. You want to stay till the end, because every step is what we are going to be explaining. So without delaying it, let's jump right in, right? Let's begin. So uh the very first thing you need when you want to make any purchase really, is money. So if that money can be hard money, like liquid money, like currency, hard currency, or it can be a note. What do I mean by note? Note is pretty much your mortgage, someone lending you money to buy hard assets. So now they have a note against the house, because you own the house, but they lend you money to buy it. So how do you find money? That should be your number one goal. So you want to reach out to the lender, local credit union. You want to reach out to your real estate agent to connect you with lender, right? So that they can check all the necessary debt to income ratio, check how much you are making at your job, how long have you been there, so they can check all this and pre-qualify you, like, okay, this is how much you qualify for. So with that, you know what your buying power is, you know what you are capable of buying, you know what will be comfortable for you, and then you can go and buy the property. That is one way though. Remember, we explain something called creative financing, I believe in episode 2 or episode 3. So if you don't have money, all you need is to find someone that is willing to be your bank. All you need is to find someone that is willing to be your bank. Maybe they are willing to sell their house and they don't have any mortgage on their house. So they own the house free and clear. You can always approach them, and pitch them seller financing. Instead of them owning the house, now they will transfer the deed of the house to you. You now own the house, but they will be your bank. Instead of you going and get a loan to pay them off, you will be making a payment to them. This can be structured in so many ways, But we already explained that. You can go back to episode 2 or 3 to get details of that. But the very first thing you need is to find a way to secure some monetary form, in order to purchase the investment property. What do you think, Ibrahim?
Yes, you've made a great point. So, first thing, if you're not going to buy cash, you need to find a way to fund the transaction. Of course, we all know sellers, the majority of them want cash.
So,
They want money. They want loan, like money in form of, it can be loan, it can be check, it can be, they want something for their, a collateral for their house because they are trying to give out their house. So they want something in return. Most of the time, they want money. Okay. Now, like Amir said, there are some situations where the owner of the house, they are willing, they are
yeah.
open to be your bank. They are open to be your funder, someone who's gonna lend you the money. You just have to approach them the right way, m- meet the right person because not everyone would do that. And here in Do the Talk, we always let you know money is good, it's great, it's part, it's good for real estate. But if you don't have money, don't let that hold you back. Literally, that's what me and Ahmed we are trying to pass to you tonight. So if you have a great credit score, you have good income, debt to income ratio is perfect. You can fund the house with normal traditional lending, or you can use investment loan to fund the transaction. Since it is your first investment property, you can choose to use any route. I mean, whatever works for you, just make sure the number is working, you know. So, Ahmed, do you want me to go to the next one?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Let's keep rolling. Let's keep rolling, Ibrahim.
Yeah, so the next one, we want you to know that before you start even buying sourcing for the loan, I mean, this can be the first step. However, we want it to be the second step because you thinking or you making a plan, it can be your first step. However, with plan without action would result to nothing. That's why we don't make it number one. So, in the real sense, in real life, that should be your number one, which is before you source your fund, you need to have an end goal. You need to have a plan, a strategy. What is your target? What are you trying to do with this business? What are you adding this business? What is your vision concerning this business? You have to add that first. If you have to talk to your partner, if you have you're married, or you're single, talk to your significant person, see how, see their opinion, learn. You just have to have a end goal because at the end of the day, you can't do business without knowing where you are going. It won't be clear to you from the beginning, but at least you should have idea of what you are trying to do. you know the more you do it, the more it get clearer, but at least from start you should have a vision. Okay, I want to have so property, I want to have in so place, I want to have this particular amount of cash flow, I want to have I want to be the maybe the best investor in Indiana. It's okay, nothing is impossible, but you having those goals and everything, of course you know that you have to work towards it to actualize those goals. But at least you've written it down. At least you've mesmerized it. You've talked with your partner. You guys have make a plan. You've seen what you want to do. Do you have to be flexible? Yes, of course, because all your plan will not work right away. Like some things you don't see from the beginning will cross your way. Some obstacles will always show up, and that's the goal. I mean, no, sorry, that's the fun, and that is the that is like a how do I put it? So it's one of the the
It's
beauty,
one of the challenge.
yeah, one of the things that makes you stronger. I mean, it's just gonna help your journey, like, because the more you face these challenges, the more you become stronger, the more you have experience, because there's nothing called experience if there's no obstacles. If everything is all sweet and good, I'm sorry, you don't have experience yet. Experience is when you are facing a lot of challenges. Because when people come to you and say, "Oh, you have experiences this in so business," what do you think they're coming for to tell you to tell them? Are you Do you think they want to hear from you like, "Oh yeah, I make a lot of money, everything is fine, everything is good"? No, those one are just the good side of it. What really what you can use as a leverage as someone who is experienced is the con side of something, and how you turn that cons into pros, or how do you manage those disadvantages, the challenges, how do you succeed even
100%.
though you are facing those challenges. That's what they call experience, you know so it's part
Yep.
of the beauty. You're gonna face all those challenges, but the fact that you have make your plan, you know where you're going, you are ready to face it, it's gonna help you to to succeed. Because without you having it down, without you having any plan, it's like you just going blindly, and if things run into your way, it will crash you. I'm sorry, if you don't have a plan. So essentially that's the first thing, but we don't put it the first because you thinking about all that without you going to source the fund, without you putting a way to get that funding. If it's seller financing, if it's traditional lending, it's not gonna do anything for you. Just It's like just dreaming. We don't want you to dream and do the thought. We want you to dream, but we want you to put that dream into reality. So
Yep.
anyway, our number two tonight is to sit down, think about your end goal, see what you want to do with the kind of business you are trying to to start. You putting it down, it helps you to see clearly, to see where you're going. um Amir, you want to do the next one?
Yeah, so with what you just said, we bring me to our next point, which is part of planning, really. You need to understand the market you want to invest in. You need to understand the market you want to invest in. Are you looking for houses in class A? We already discussed all these things, but today is a condensed episode. So we are bringing everything we've been discussing all together in one. So class A is your high level class, where the school zone is pretty good. The amenities are nice. The price of the house increased so rapidly in those environments. Those class A are like the dream home for everybody. Your dream area to live in. They have their own downside, which is the cash flow is very, very low. If you can even cash flow, that is even if you can cash flow, you might be in the negative in class A. But guess what? They have the best school area, they have the best road, they have the best uh neighborhood watch, they have the best HOA, they have the best shopping. You will see Walmart, Target, you see Kroger, you see all these things in those areas because that is where the money is. This is where all the people that are making six figures and above live in, right? So class, you need to understand classes. So class A is pretty good, but cash cash flow is, you might not even see any. Do you want class B? Class B is pretty good as well. Class B is more or less of class A, but it's a little affordable. It's still affordable, it's still clean, the school area is still good, but the same thing with class A, the cash flow will still be very, very low. Do you want class A? Do you want class B? Do you want class C, which is where you see majority of the apartment, where you see the majority of the apartment complex, where you see majority of the small multi-family, where you see a lot of everyday person that is just working hard and making end meets, things is nice. in their life. They are not rich, but they are not poor. They are managing and they are successful. They are taking care of themselves. This is area that you want to be majorly when you are doing investment property, because these are the area where you can cash flow and still see a little bit of appreciation. So class A and class B go more into that, but class C, you can actually make both work in class C, depending on, because now class C can eventually become B, A, and all that. So it's still close. Or do you want class D? Class D will give you cash flow, but it has its downside as well. The kind of tenants that you are going to see there, the kind of people that are willing to live in that neighborhood, you know. So it's you have to come up with what you actually want. So if you want class A, you want class B, you want class C of planning, but that is something you need to consider when you are trying to buy anything real estate, really, because it will affect and determine what your strategy will be at the end of the day. So if you get a house, what you will be able to do with it and what kind of return you are expecting in terms of cash flow or in terms of appreciation. So yeah, it is very, very important to plan and realize all these things, because uh, they will shape a lot of things that you do with the property. They will shape a lot of things that you are able to do with the property. I don't want to go in depth into classes. Ibrahim already explained this to us, I think episode 4 or 5, where we mentioned even cities in India that fall into these categories. But if you want full details of that, you can always go back to our previous episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and watch them and leave us a review so that we can know what we are doing better and what we can improve on. Ibrahim, what will be the next one for you?
Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate the opportunity. So I think we should break it a little further because we're talking about cash flow. We're talking about appreciation. Sometimes you get the two together. Sometimes you can't even, you only get one. So I think it's a good idea to kind of really dive into it. So cash flow, what is cash flow? So let me start by saying this. When you buy a house and you put in a tenant, before you put in a tenant, of course, you already know how much your mortgage is going to look like. That is if you go through the traditional financing. And let's assume your mortgage is $1,000. Okay. Now, in that area, you are able to put a tenant in your house for 1,600 just because you are in class C or you are in class luckily B, or I doubt it, but mostly C. You know, um, you are in C, so you put it like 1,600. That is, you have $600. Now, $600 is not your cash flow. Okay,
Yeah.
so the $600, you have to think about maintenance. You have to think about repair costs. You have to think about like any emergency that can happen to that house. So the major investor side. So maintenance fee, it differs from one investor to the other. It depends on the condition of the house. It depends on how comfortable you are taking risk. Here, we don't want to encourage you to take unnecessary risk. So I will advise you to keep, since it's $600 left, why don't you keep $200 for maintenance, repair, and everything monthly? Keep $200 because your mortgage is 1,000, your tenant pay 1,600. So keep $200 for maintenance and repair. Put it in another account, an escrow account where you don't mess with it. Now, the $400 that is left in your pocket, that can be considered cash flow. That is, if you have taken $200 aside, in that $200, if I want to break it down a little more, maybe $100 is for maintenance and repair. Another $100 is for taxes. Or you can do it this way. You can keep $300 just to be fully covered. Keep $300, 200, 200 for taxes, or 150 for taxes, 150 for maintenance and repair. That way you are completely covered, because you don't want a situation where you've spent the money just because you um over withdraw money for cash flow. You don't want to withdraw too much. You want to balance it out where you have cash flow, and your cash flow does not have to affect your original or your maintenance money, because if you already spent it and something comes up, you have to find the money. The city will not let you keep your taxes because you did not budget right, or because you spent your money in a negligent or reckless way. So anyway, make sure you budget right. Keep maybe half of it, $300 for cash flow, and $300 for maintenance, taxes. If you have HOA, minus the HOA money from the $300 monthly. So when you add all together, that will be your cushion, because you got to keep the property running, and the tenant will not be responsible to pay extra money
Absolutely.
aside of the mortgage, besides the utilities, because the tenant is using the utility, so they are comfortable doing that. But you cannot expect the tenant to pay your taxes after paying the mortgage. So cash flow is what is left after you have taken your mortgage, your maintenance fee, your repair fee, your taxes, and if you have HOA, your HOA fee. That is cash flow. Now, in some areas, you may not get even $200. Like overall, I'm not even talking about even with taxes, everything. You barely, some area like area um class A that I may just it just explain very deeply for us. Like if you're in class A, you barely have any cash flow, because the reason is because the house, first of all, is expensive. The neighborhood is expensive. The taxes in that area is expensive. I mean, I can give you a little example. Andrews County is more, their tax in Andrews County is more, is higher than Marion County. The same with Hamilton County, Southern Hamilton is higher than Marion County. Do we have the same property there? Sometimes, yeah. In fact, sometimes there are some property in Marion County that is even more expensive than people living in Hamilton County. I mean, of course, it's not just about this, the price of the house. It's about the city, the entire city, the way they structure it. So when you are in Hendricks, you definitely pay more taxes than someone is in Marion County. So technically, if you have a house there, your taxes, that extra fee that you have to pay every year, has to come from somewhere. And and your house in Hendricks is more expensive just because of the neighborhood, the school zone, the location, the amenities, everything. Now, all these things, it will go to your mortgage. Okay. Now, the tenant that wants to rent that place, there's a limit to how much you can charge. I mean, your mortgage is already like 2,200 or 2,400, and somebody wants to rent that same place. If you want to go, like, okay, if you want to, so because it's already expensive, r- to be fair and to be reasonable as a landlord, you cannot go AYI. You have to go a rate that is affordable. Otherwise, the person will feel like he or she has to go buy, her property or his property. Because if they have to pay like 2006, 2007, why, they'll feel like they have to go get their property. So because of that, and besides that, rent is kind of regulated solely, not like openly, but there's a way the government kind of monitoring the rent, and they are trying to, different strategy. The city, I should say, they try different strategy to kind of moderate rent, because it's already expensive in those class A's, class B. So my point here is that those area you barely get cash flow, because it's the property itself, the taxes, everything, it's already expensive. So People that invest in that area, their goal is more of appreciation, which brings me to the next one, which is the appreciation. Now, why would you go for appreciation? That's a very great question. But in real estate, actually, in real estate, what makes you rich, what makes you wealthy is appreciation, not the cash flow. Well, cash flow is great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we want cash flow. I want cash flow. But a long term strategy, a long term way of sustaining your investment, every investor has to be thinking about appreciation. If you just want to invest for cash flow and that's it, of course, you're going to be having money every month. But if you want your business to grow exponentially, like grow dramatically, you have to care about appreciation. It's like a free money. Okay. So appreciation, what is appreciation? Appreciation is you buy a property today for $200,000 in 2023. After 2, 3, or 5 years, let's say 2027, now your house is, you bought it for 300K, sorry, and your house is like 420 or maybe 400,000. That's like $100,000 appreciation. Yeah, I mentioned 100,000. It's because I'm trying to be conservative. Honestly, I've seen people, they bought the house for 240 back in, like 4 years ago. Now they sold it by about four, I think 465. So it's almost double. So me saying 100,000 is just because of the podcast. I don't want you to overthink it, but your house can appreciate miraculously, especially if you are in class A or class B. So some people target that, which is a great way of investment. Though we want some appreciate, some cash flow as well, because you don't want to be negative all the time. People that are able to do that and be negative and still be okay are big time investors. Like you have to have more than one. You cannot here at Do the Talk, we will not advise you to go for appreciation with your first investment property, because you're gonna be netting zero, like negative. And when you're netting negative, of course the morale would die. Like it will just not, you won't feel good about it, because you have to do something damage. If you have to buy something, you feel like, why am I into this business when I barely make anything? It's all negative all the time. So we don't want you to do that. We want to keep your motivation high. We want to keep you to keep, you want to see you striving, keep striving. So by doing so, please focus on cash flow, and of course appreciation is the way to go. But make sure you have some cash flow. Ahmed, let's go to the next one.
Thank you, Ibrahim. You really break down the appreciation and cash flow side of the hire. I just want to mention this to our audience. I mean, at some point in in your real estate career, you will go for appreciation. But majority of us are not at the position to start investing for appreciation. That is just a fact. So at some point, everything will be appreciation for you. Cash flow is just going to be like icing on the cake. It's not the original thing, but it's just like if you get it, that's fine. So, but cash flow will set you up for that time. So you really need to know where you are. If you are financially free already and you just want to jump into real estate to diversify your investments, okay, maybe appreciation is somewhere that, but you don't have any money coming in. The job that you are working right now is the only source of income. Don't go ahead and shoot for appreciation straight. It's just an advice from me. It's nothing. You have to look at your financial situation before you make that judgment. So another thing is, make sure, just like Ibrahim said, make sure you plan to take out maintenance, vacancy, taxes from your cash flow. Don't spend all of it. So I want to tell a little quick story about that. There is someone that bought a property, and he when this tenant is paying him, I mean the tenant is paying, and he doesn't plan for it. He doesn't plan for any repair. He doesn't plan for vacancy. He doesn't plan for taxes and all that. And the tenants move out after 12 months of their lease, and he needs to put in almost 10,000 into the house to get it back into a good shape to rent it out. And is not in a good financial stand to do that. He was forced to do what? To sell that house just because he cannot meet up with the demand, that the challenge that the house posed at that time. If he had been planning, taking out all these uh, taxes, vacancy, and repairs, even if that money is going to be much, that will reduce its liability at that point, and that will make it easy for him to work it out. However, he doesn't do that, and that forced him to sell the property. So it can be very damaging. And now his experience is like he's telling everybody how real estate doesn't worth it and all that. But you have to do it the right way. That is the only sustainable way. Because at some point, those things will come back to eat. And when they eat, you got to be ready. That is why we said don't think the entire 600 is actually your cash flow. Save up for raining day, which is when the maintenance will call you, like, hey, the water heater is out. Hey, you need to come pay taxes for this. You need to do that. So when you save up, it makes it easy, right? And you don't get frustrated. So we've mentioned that you need to source for loan or any form of note to buy the house, maybe traditional financing or creative financing. We've explained how you define your end goal, make sure you actually prepare. And we've explained to how you need to understand the classes you want to invest in. We already talked about cash flow and appreciation, which is all the preliminary that you need to do. Now is the time to actually go out and find the property that you want to purchase. It's, you know it's in a class that you want. You already know, okay, I'm going to be doing Airbnb, I'm going to be doing Section 8, I'm going to be doing long-term leasing. So you already plan all that. Now you can easily identify what you want, and you can then purchase the property. Purchasing a property, it can be a lengthy process, because finding a property, you have to put it under contract. What I mean by you have to put it under contract is you have to pay like honest money, just to show your seriousness of buying the property. So when you put down the honest money, then that shows the seller that you are really willing to buy their house, and you can lose that. So that is in a process. You have to, the escrow company are going to do title search, making sure there's no liens on that property, and if there's any, they'll prepare to pay it off at the closing, so that will be coming out of the process that the seller is supposed to get, if everything goes well and the seller actually agreed to the lien. So these are all the steps that need to be that need to take place in the process of buying the house. On the day of closing, like we always say, if you are trying to purchase a property, make sure you stay on top of the process, because you never know, things can go south in a 5 minutes. The escrow must give you a clear to close. If you are doing seller financing, you must make sure that the seller is all in and they are not going to back out at the last minute, Or maybe you guys already talk, you already agreed to seller financing, and now they are calling you to ask question about it. You are not picking their call, so they went into panic mode and they back out, right? So you need to stay on top of your game until you actually close, because that property is not yours until you close. Let's say we had this discussion last week when we brought Andrew in. You think because you already got a pre-approval, you already signed a contract with the builder, then you go and get a car. That will destroy everything that the underwriters have been working on, because now they have to recalculate your debt to income ratio, which might not work again. So you need to make sure you understand all these rules and follow through. Either it's creative or traditional financing, you need to make sure you stay on top of it and make sure you close. Just because you are under contract doesn't mean the deal is going to close. No, it doesn't say that. So, but on closing day, you need to show up, or we now have virtual closing. People can, notary officer will come to your house. You sign documents. You sign the most important. There are a couple of most important documents, but the two that I would say is very, very important is the promissory note and the deed that is transferring to you, because the deed is what is securing your interest in the property, and the promissory note is what is securing the mortgage company, the person that is giving you the loan, or the seller that is financing you. uh, that is what is giving them their assurance that if you default, now they can take legal action. So these are the documents that you are going to sign on the closing table. And when that is done, they can now hand the key over to you. Now you have the property. So before that point, you need to make sure you are on top of it. You answer your phone, you answer your email. When they request for any documentation, you make sure you provide it as soon as possible. And if you are still working on it, you need to let them know, so that they know that, okay, he got my message, he's just working on it. You can even give them a time frame, like, I'm going to get back to you in 2 days. Because one thing in our mind as a human is, when we put time at the back of anything, we always struggle, we always strive to meet up. But when you say, okay, I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible, can be next week. That is when. But when you say, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow, now subconsciously in your mind, something stick there that tomorrow I have to get back to Ibrahim, because you actually say it out. You already commit yourself to that tomorrow by saying it out. So this is something that I always see, and people take it lightly. Escrow, signing of the contract doesn't mean you have the house. No, you have to make sure you follow the escrow officer rules. Don't get any extra loans. And if it is creative financing, you want to stay on top of your game with the seller, because they are going to have a lot of questions. A lot of sellers are just doing real estate transaction maybe once every 10 years. It's not like you, that you are buying houses, you are acquiring more houses every now and then, maybe every few months, maybe once a year, maybe every 3 or 4 a month. So you are doing it. Don't forget that these people only do it maybe once in 5 years, maybe once in 10 years. So you need to keep up with answering their questions. And if they need anything from you provide it. What do you think, Ibrahim?
Yes, you have given all the interesting and fun things to know about. I mean, we are not trying to scare you guys or let you know that we have to just give you all these facts, because these are the things you need to do. It's one thing, like you said, you're on contract. It's another thing to finish and close. So you just have to do your part. You cannot violate the contract. So From the beginning, when you sign the contract and everything, there are all conditions. So, of course, the loan officer might tell you, some might not, because of maybe you are signing hybrid and you guys are not seeing each other at that moment. But there are conditions associated with the loan. um the seller is expecting you to close. They're expecting you to follow the rules so you can get the property, as well as the loan officer. Also, they want to sell you the loan, they want to give you the funding. At the same time, if you violate the rules, they will have no other choice but to cancel the deal. So why would you waste your time and do all the start the process but not finish the process? So what Ahmed is trying to pass on to you is that we you have to be diligent. Make sure you follow all the follow up the process from A to Z. That way you get the key to the house. So I think Ahmed
Absolutely.
he already broke it down, and there's no much to say about it. It just takes me to the next one. I mean, you've gotten your key, but I mean, it's one thing to get your house, get your key. It's another thing to maintain the house. Upkeeping is a big deal. It's like you buying a vehicle. No matter what the brand is, even if it's Toyota, BMW, Mercedes, no matter what company made that product, made that vehicle, if you don't maintain that vehicle, it's gonna break down. Same thing as like a house. When you buy a house, you have
Absolutely.
to maintain that house. Now, in this situation, the house they temporarily belong to the tenant. When I say belongs, I don't mean like the tenant owning. I just mean like the tenant is living there. However, you own the house. So temporarily, the tenant has all these rights, right to stay there, right to use it, because they are paying you. So the government or the city have some regulations concerning rentals. So because they are living there, they are paying you. There's something called wear and tear. So, and this wear and tear, they are not responsible for that. What they are responsible for is a huge damage, like maybe accidental damage, but something like, let's say you saw a big jab to the drywall, or somebody throw a stone to the drywall, or somebody shoot the glass with gun, or like something, that it shows that this is a aggressive act. Not Sometimes something is aggressive and it's a mistake, but it's not something that is just gradually wearing off, like like caulking of a drywall, and it's going off gradually. That has nothing to do with the tenant, because even if you are living there, the caulking will come out. The weather, of course, we all live in Indiana. We know how the US is. The weather, the winter will come, the summer will come, the spring, the fall. All these weather changes, it affects the house. When it's winter, the wood will swell. During the summer, it will shrink. So all this, it has its own effect on the drywall. You see a nail pops up. You will see cracks in the ceiling. You see cracks at the joint of the bearing. You see cracks at the window framing. You see crack. All those stuffs. It's the landlord responsibility, because the tenant cannot help that. That's natural. That's wear and tear. Or you go to your house, you see like your rental house, you see the floor, um you know it's having some kind of wear and tear gradually. That's normal. It's part of, because they are paying to leave the house. The only thing that, or some of the things that you might want to charge them for, is like when you see a deliberate damage, like, you know I've mentioned some of them. Or you go there, you see your microwave. It's like somebody punch it, or somebody punch the refrigerator. Like you see a big dent inside the refrigerator. That's not wear and tear. That's somebody accidentally or intentionally damage the structure or the shape of the refrigerator. Then you can charge them for that. So Are you gonna see wear and tear? 100%. You're gonna see that. Okay, what do you do as a landlord? What you have to do is to save for that event before it even happens. You have to save for it. That way you can fix it when it happens, because you cannot charge a tenant for a natural something that's gonna happen anyway. Upkeeping, it's the responsibility of the landlord. When I say upkeeping, I'm not talking about sweeping the floor. I'm not talking about mopping the floor. I'm talking about wear and tear. I'm talking about one day the roof will go out. One day you have to replace the roof. That has nothing to do with the tenant, except if the tenant is shooting a gun to the roof, or is, he and his maybe family throwing, stones on the roof, or like, intentionally cut a tree and smacking on the roof. That's, those are something that does not happen. I mean, it's very rare if you come across something like that, but most time the roof, like anything you buy that is new, will get old. Let's say the water heater goes out. Normally it's landlord responsibility, because the tenant have to use water heater, they have to, take shower, they pay for that. So we don't want all this to happen to you without you being prepared, without you knowing that it's your responsibility. That's why we are here, to pass this message to you, to know that you have to prepare for all this. Now, how much can you save? I've mentioned it before. There's no really a particular amount. It really depends on your risk tolerance. If you feel like, oh, you don't want to take, big of a risk, you are getting $600 after you deduct your mortgage, you can break into half. $300 for maintenance, taxes, and HOA if you have any. If not, for upkeeping and maintenance, $300 your cash flow. Better yet, you can make it $400 for your maintenance and upkeep, and $200 for your cash flow. Believe me, $200 for cash flow is not too little, because when you look at the surface and you are just seeing $200, you think, oh, this is just 200. No, it's not like that. $200, yes, you want more than that, yeah, I understand, but you have to think about the tax side of it, the taxes. You have to think about the IRS side of it. Real estate is your legal strategy to save on your taxes. We're not even talking about anything on legal here. We always preach legal, and that is the legal way to save money on taxes. Have you even considered that? If when you consider that, you consider your 200. In fact, you're gonna say $200 is big, because do you know how much you're gonna save when you file a depreciation? Do you know how much you're gonna save when you file a repair that you've been saving? Maybe your tenant call you for a water heater damage and all that. You're gonna take that money back. It's expenses. It's part of your business. So save this money and make sure you are doing upkeeping. Ahmed, what do we have for the next one?
Thank you, Ibrahim. I mean, we upkeep is very, very big, and that takes me to our next point, which is don't be cheap. We want you to save money. We want you to generate cash flow, but just because someone tell you to is going to fix your damage, let's say staircase
Mhm.
stairs for 300, and another person say 500, doesn't make the 500 wrong or too expensive,
Yeah.
and doesn't make the 300 too cheap. However, you need to use your human judgment. That is why we are human, to know what that uh, work has actually worked. I recently make that mistake by paying a contractor that is the cheapest, that give me the cheapest bid, and I pay dearly for it. I pay with money, I pay with time, I pay with just the headache, because that house could have burned down with the shady work that he did. So don't be cheap. Don't be looking for uh, um, a handyman where you are supposed to use a contractor that know the code, that understand what the city wants. what code it needs to meet, what standard that job needs to meet. Don't be using handyman for such work. I mean, if it is your toilet clog, you can find an handyman to take care of that. But when you are dealing with huge, huge uh deals, don't be cheap with it. Make sure you find someone that can actually do the work, capable of doing the work. I'm not saying go overboard by paying someone ridiculous amount of money, but that is why I said we need to be reasonable about it and try our best to you know make sure that the person have the capability. There are so many ways you can vet them by taking Rivara, asking for where what they've done before in the past, asking for who they do the work for. So you can call those people and ask, oh, if you are to hire this person, will you give them the work again? How is your experience with them? Stuff like that. So there are many ways to vet them to make sure they can do the job right. And just make sure you are not being cheap. That's basically what I think. After you are keeping up with your maintenance, you need to ensure that when they actually show up, when those maintenance actually show up, don't be cheap. Ibrahim, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So it takes me to the next one. You have to provide good services.
Yeah.
It's like you go to Walmart, you want to buy something, you know. Of course, I'm using a good example of Walmart because we know sometimes, yeah, people have their own reservation about all these businesses. But when you see a good customer service, imagine you trying to get service and somebody offer you a good customer service. How would you feel? You're gonna feel, wanted, like wanted in the sense that you feel appreciated. That's my point. You feel special. You feel like that person cares about you. It's the same way when you have a tenant, you have to treat them right. You have to make them feel like that home, which is your house, it's a home for them. Of course, they don't own the house, but they have to feel at home. If they don't feel at home just because you have unnecessary ego, just because you are rude to them, just because you are, I don't know, like you are just, you cannot provide good customer service, and you just, you know you are insulting them indirectly, like, or you are just making them feel like they are not valuable. They're not gonna last. They will leave that house, and whoever comes in again will also leave. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna have a long vacancy because a word of mouth spreads than what you can
Yep.
imagine. Like, it spreads so widely. They are going to tell people, or in fact put it online and give the bad experience that they've encountered in your place. And trust me, that may affect your ability to acquire another tenant. You don't want that. You want to provide a good services where the tenant feels like, in fact, I've seen situation where the tenant, they almost feel like they own the house. There's nothing wrong with that because there's a document that you own the house. Them feeling like, almost feeling like they own the house, it means they can stay there for like 20 years. They are gonna be paying their bill. That does not stop them from paying the bill, but they just feel at home. They feel like, yeah, this is a good environment for me. And as an investor,
Absolutely.
your goal is not to chase somebody else every year. I mean, chase someone out every year and replace them every year. No, your goal is to get a long-term tenant because you are trying to get a good, sufficient amount of return for your money. Remember, you own the debt, but they pay the debt for you. So it is a good strategy to get somebody that will stay longer in the property and pay the debt for you for many years. At the end of the day, you are the benefiting, you are the one benefiting largely from this if they stay there and paying the rent for you. You are providing value to them. In return, they are paying your debt. There's
Yep,
nothing more
absolutely.
amazing than that. There's nothing more amazing than that. Nothing more valuable than that. You are the one getting that benefit. So, Ahmed, let's go to the next one because of time.
Yeah. So after all this, you've gone through so many planning. You buy the house, you fill it with guests or tenants, long time tenants. Now, what next? Keep paying your bills. You need to pay your bills. You need to pay HOA. You need to pay your insurance. You need to pay your taxes. You need to pay your mortgage. If you have what's it called? Lawn, you need to cut your grasses. You need to keep all these things tidy and keep it going, because what will happen is if you fail to pay any of them, then there will be legal action, or there will be this we they will do it for you and then
Mhm.
charge you 10 times the amount of money you're supposed to pay. So that is very, very critical. You need to pay your bills. You need to pay your bills. No mortgage company want to own a house. They are not in a business of real estate. They are in the business of lending. So if you are struggling in any way, you need to communicate. There is something called loan modification in foreclosure process. If you actually struggle, they will modify that loan on your behalf to make sure they lessen the burden on you. They will modify that loan to make sure they lessen the burden. So they are not actually trying to get your house. I see a lot of misconception about that. A lot of people saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
they want to get my house. They want me
Yeah.
to get move out of this." No, they are in the lending business. They are not in a real estate business. So even getting that house, it's a liability for them, because now they need to run the maintenance, they need to do the upkeep. What you are supposed to be doing. So they don't have the resources to do that. So they want you to pay. If you struggle in any way, make sure you communicate before it piles up and it becomes something that you cannot pay or afford to pay anymore. So that's is the last point for me. Ibrahim, any final word before we wrap
Yeah,
it up?
quickly, I want to appreciate our audience, our most valuable audience that we have. He mentioned something that I think we have to go through. I mean, we didn't, it wasn't on our list, but it is very great to have this. You have to have insurance on your property. Um, D, we appreciate you so
100%.
much for pointing that out. You have to have insurance. Even if you own the house cash, you are not. Most people are not prepared for any hazard, especially something that requires a total remodeling or a even partial remodeling. A lot of people are not ready for that, especially you that wants to buy your first investment property. You are not ready for that. You are not ready for that. I am not ready for that. So because of that, I insured all my investment properties. The same thing, you have to do that. Insure your property with a good insurance. Make sure the coverage are sufficient for your property. And of course, you have to get a landlord insurance. Do not put a primary resident insurance on your investment property, because you will not get that coverage when something happens. They really want you to get a landlord insurance. It is a different kind of insurance that covers your investment property. Thank you,
Yep.
D, for that once again. I mean, that's all I have today, and we want to appreciate all our audience. Thanks for coming. We want you to keep coming every Friday. I mean, we dedicate our time every Friday to come here to talk to you guys. We really appreciate you. If you can go back and watch all our videos, follow our channel, do the Talk Podcast. We are committed in educating you guys. We don't know it all. We appreciate a constructive, um, you know, questions and concerns. We are ready to answer your questions. If we don't know it, we're gonna source it. source that answer, and we're gonna share with you guys. So Ahmed, how can they reach
Um,
out to you?
yeah, if you need to reach me, you can reach me on Instagram. It's official Ahmed Lawal. It's on the screen. Official Ahmed Lawal. You can always reach out to me on there. And yeah, I'm not I'm not that multi-millionaire yet, so I still answer my DM. So I will get back to you as quickly as I can. If you need my number, it's 317-531-9685. Ibrahim, how can they reach out to you?
Yes, it's written there, IB Rotors. If you go to IB Rotors, DM me, you know, say, ask your questions, your concerns. I will try my best to give you a, a reasonable, fair answer. You can call me 317-280-0213. Call me or text me anything concerning real estate. I'm ready to help. Thank you, guys.
All right. See you guys next week. Bye.